Does a trip to the bazaar end with someone at the table asking, "So can I just set the stall on fire?" And you know the scene. The rogue is trying to steal things, the wizard's trying to find new books, the fighter is trying to impress the blacksmith by showing off all of his scars, and in the process is already half naked. They're making a scene of themselves, but they're much more focused on the things that they want to buy than the setting that they are within. They don't think about trade as to where they need to go. They think about it in terms of what they need, and the rest is just decoration. So what if we can change that? How do we make a location which is as interesting to go to so that your players want to trade more than just for the outcome of it? What if they enjoyed the process, and what if it fleshed out your world as well? Hello adventurers, welcome back to the Red Quills, and on day 21 of our Mapvember challenge, I am creating the outline for the Godswound trading post, and we are going to discuss how you can make trading outside of villages and in the wilderness, how you can explore custom houses and toll houses and trading posts in a way that is interesting, makes sense, and actually gives you concepts for NPCs beyond just the gnomish alchemist or the snooty elven bookseller. How can we create those things and enjoy the process of doing it? So that's what we're going to explore today. What we're going to do is we're going to get out our sheet of A4 paper and our set of Fineliner pens, and we're going to start by sketching the outline of an outpost. Now, the Godswound training post has actually been mentioned on one of my earlier maps, and I just loved the name and the location because that gives us a little bit of context for what we're doing here. Now, village markets and town agoras and, city suburbs devoted to rare goods all still exist and can be used, and that's fine. They aren't what we're particularly looking at here. What we're looking at is smaller settlements and fortresses that are specifically designed for people in the wilderness to come and trade at. And the Godswound trading post is in a wonderful position because of that. It is set on a river mouth in the Broken Shores and is very nearby not only to one of the capital cities of Anakos, but is also very close to several pirate fortresses. It is a haven not only for legal trade, but also for smuggling. And that's what I kind of wanted to do here. It's in a dangerous area too, so it will need defenses against roving bandits and marauders, and of course the pirates themselves. So how are we going to do that? What is the practical structure of making something like that while still balancing it with being a place that is actually welcoming to traders, and what kind of NPCs do we stock it with? So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly sketch out its location. Best, most defensible location is an island, of course. So they've chosen a small island off the banks of the river. It's not extremely large. We're thinking about 350 feet across, but that is enough for a high wall around it and several buildings. Some of them are quite small. And then what we're going to look at first is the defenses and make sure that it is somewhere that makes sense for the traders to stay within the wilderness itself. They don't have a large population to help them. They aren't within a village or a town. They can't rely on patrols of watchmen or knights to maintain order. So the defenses are this. We're going to look at having two drawbridges, one of which is for pedestrians and one of which is for carts, and that's just for practical purposes. Both of them can be pulled up and both of them can be cut away from the island itself if necessary. So there is the option to destroy them if the island is being invaded. But each of the drawbridges leads not only beneath a portcullis and a couple of towers which can look over it, shoot arrows down, and have oil funnels for hot oil for invaders. It also leads into a smaller courtyard, which has a large fort against the far wall and then two portcullises that lead out. So it's like an airlock. It'll stop people from running wild as soon as they get in. So if a trader comes to trade goods and, barter at the trading post, they'll need to cross the drawbridge, announcing themselves as they go, and enter into the courtyard. There, their goods are searched in order to make sure that they aren't, hiding an invasion force, in order to make sure that they're actually telling the truth about what they have, and of course, to see to the quality of their goods as well. Anyone who does not submit to be searched is still within the bounds of the courtyard. They have the towers above, which can shoot arrows at them. They have the portcullises keeping them in place, and they have the fortress against the other side, which can send missiles against them as well. It is very bad for people to be trapped in there, and that is the deterrent in and of itself. But if they do manage to convince the people who run the place that they are friendly and willing to trade, then the portcullis opens and they lead their carts into the main area. There's a central area which is where visitors are required to park their carts and do their trade. They're not allowed into many of the buildings themselves. And this is where we get to the layout of the trading post itself and the broader defenses. That's how you get in via land, but there is a sea method as well. So on the river side of the island, there is a very simple dock. It has some wooden piers, it has a crane for heavy supplies, and it has a tower overlooking the docks and a harbour master's office. Both of those are on opposite sides of this semicircular indent in the island, and they have between them a sea chain. Now, for those of us who aren't familiar, a sea chain is honestly what it says on the tin. It is a large, thick chain, possibly embedded with spikes, that is suspended between 2 points and can be cranked taut. So what that means is if it's anchored to the sea tower, and in the harbour master's office they have a large crank, if they want to stop a ship from leaving, or if they want to stop a ship from docking, they only need to crank the sea chain until it's tight, and that will stop a boat from being able to sail past the chain. While it's loose, it sits beneath the surface of the water and doesn't disturb the keel of the ship. But if it's tight and it has spikes on it, then it may very well end up tearing holes in the bottom of a ship. And I'm no sailor, but that sounds like a bad thing to me. And in addition, except for those two entrances, there are walls and towers around the exterior of the island, always facing outwards and inwards so that they can stop thefts from inside and invasions from outside. And then we get to the other buildings as well. There is a large warehouse, of course, for the storage of bulk goods. There are smaller specific areas that require separation from other industries, and in this particular case I'm talking about apothecaries, where you can have explosive chemicals. We're talking about the smithy, in which you need a great deal of heat, and of course we've got a provisions hut as well, which is where we're going to store the food separate from the bulk goods and separate from those other more hazardous professions, because if there's one thing we don't want to spoil, it is the food for the people living there. And in addition to all of those outbuildings, we have the central bailey itself. It has two wings, one for the trade of food and spices and one for the trade of valuables. And the reason that we're keeping those separate, of course, from the warehouse or the other smaller huts is because they are far more valuable and they have to be kept under closer watch. The bailey itself is a 3-story building. It has the cells beneath, which are also used for storage, but also as cells for criminals. It has the bottom layer, which is an administration layer, and we have the top level as well, which is where the guards stay and where they keep their armory as well. So if this place is invaded, then that's the final defense for everyone. They retreat to the top of the bailey, they all take up arms, and in addition, on the roof of the bailey there are 2 large ballista, and they can either sink ships from a distance or destroy the drawbridges and make red mist of whatever bandits try to invade from the shore. So those are the defenses that we set up in place. And as you can see, there are several layers there. We've got defenses on the entrances and exits. We've got defenses against horde combat and mass invasion from overwhelming force, and of course we've got defenses on the interior as well against theft and spoiling and all of the problems that we'll come across. So we're keeping food separate from the warehouse, for instance, because it's much more important to keep rats and pests away from the food than it is to keep them away from wood or straw. Once we've got the defenses in place, we ask ourselves, what's the process of trading with this outpost? So it's obviously in the wilderness. How do they maintain their supplies? How do they maintain their guards? And how does someone come in and leave if they are intended to be peaceful? So firstly, this place is required and really needs to have a constant supply of food. They have the river for water, possibly. They probably need some kind of filtration system if necessary, which is, fairly simple. They can set up a few barrels of charcoal and sand to filter out any sediment. That's not too difficult for them to do, but food is something they will require a constant stream of, probably in the form of dried meats and flour, because vegetables can be grown. But it means that they will need a rotation of patrols, probably every 2 weeks, in which they will offload a boat of all of the supplies needed to maintain the population, raw materials and food, and then they'll log it up with all the empty storage and send it on its way. More than that, this place will need a garrison of soldiers and traders, and possibly both. While some professions require specializations, for instance, the amount of time and dedication it takes to become a smith really precludes their ability to spend much time learning how to, work a ballista. Many of the professions, like being a merchant, will give them enough free time that they can moonlight as a guard on the outside. We have 12 outposts on the walls here, which means that we will need a minimum rotation of somewhere around 24 people. In case of an invasion, you want 2 people in each of the towers, but that also allows for 3 rotations of 6 guards at any given time. In addition, you'll need a captain, possibly a captain and a vice captain, so that they can take rotations as well, and then the specialists, in this case, probably an apothecary, a smith, and then a quartermaster as well, which has brought us up to around 30 people. That's a nice round number, and that is going to give any player party that comes in a figure of authority in their second in command. It will give them the specialists in the form of the apothecary, the smith, and the quartermaster, and that gives you at least 5 people to deal with. And then if you have traveling traders who are also at the outpost, like jewelers or lumberers or stonemasons as well, then that gives you more people to talk to. And each of them, by the necessity of this location, has been given a personality required by them for life out here. The captain needs to be stern and commanding and suspicious. The quartermaster needs to be meticulous about the details that happen. The blacksmith needs to be resourceful and practical from working on a low budget and without many materials. And the apothecary must be used to isolation because they will smell, and there's only a small population here anyway. And so all of the requirements of that have not only given you the personalities and the function of the trading post, but the expectations for the party themselves. If they're coming through the wilderness and they need somewhere to trade, then the Godswound trading post will have all of the general requirements for them, and may indeed occasionally have much more valuable goods if the smugglers have come in as well. This is a practical trading post. They cannot afford to make enemies if they can possibly avoid it. And so of course they will trade with the pirates if necessary. They will also plug holes in the pirates' ships if necessary as well. And all in all, that's the way that we've kind of sketched out an encounter with a trading post in the wilds that the players can return to, in which they can fence stolen goods, where they can make some erstwhile allies, and they don't have to go all the way back into town if they're in the middle of a dangerous area. But it's also worth noting, this place, whilst it is welcoming to traders, is not necessarily friendly. They rely upon each other for protection, and so it's not recommended practice for them to allow strangers to sleep within the walls. They're going to keep travelers at arm's length, even while being fairly open to trade. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So that is my trading post in the Godswound trading post. I've talked very briefly about what it took to make it. What do you think about the process of making it? What would you add? What kind of thoughts and processes have you added to any trading posts in the games that you've run in the past? There's obviously more to talk about. I will upload this to the Patreon, and I'll add a little bit of lore in there as well, and talk a little bit more in writing about the processes themselves. This is just talking about the actual making of it and what we can learn from the structure as we sketch it out as to how it impacts on the schedules, the rotations, and the personalities of the people that live there. So thank you for watching. If you found this useful, hit that like and subscribe button. And for tomorrow, I'm going to give everyone the prompt for day 22, which is today we worked on a trading post, and tomorrow we will work on creating an outpost itself. We're going to create the Storm's Watchtower. And what we're going to go for here, before anyone launches into the wrong expectations, I'm not going to talk about a single tower. We're talking about a wilderness watch, an enclosed fortress. It's not a castle. It's not a single tower. It's going to be somewhere in between, somewhere that's self-sufficient and has a garrison of a little bit over this trading post. We're going to talk about at least 40 people there. So what does that look like? What practical requirements will you have there? And what defenses can you put in place if the party has to assault it? What does that look like? So that's what we're going to do tomorrow. Once again, thank you for watching. And as always, happy mapping. Missiles against them as well. So it's an absolute kill box of a place. Well, I don't know if I can say that. It's an absolute death trap. No, I can't say that as well. It is very bad for people to be trapped in there, and that is the deterrent in and of itself. But if they do manage to convince the people who